There we go. Sorry.
No worries.
In the
No
beginning of this, I'm going to have to edit it because in the beginning I was yelling at my kids because they were going to wake up the baby. So I was like, crap, I got to stop recording. People are going to know I'm a horrible person. Okay, so this is a good placement for it, but the font was just really super boring. And I did go through, I have thousands of fonts, and I did preliminarily go through them. And I know, Clay, before you yell at me, that you're not supposed to fake bold it, but I do it all the time. Don't tell anybody. And I'm going to enlarge this.
Oh, I do too.
Okay, good.
Fake it all.
I was thinking, Clay's going to know all my secrets and all the ways that I screw up.
I'm hoping to gain some of your secrets is what I'm hoping to do.
I don't really have that many. I fake it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so this is the focal point, right? So we are going to enlarge this. And I'm going to make it look like it belongs there. And then I'm going to center it on each other. And then I'm going to make that a folder, center it like that. Okay. But this true colors is not really standing out very much. So I am going to make it pretty. And I'm going to add a layer. And I'm going to grab more colors from here. I need a watercolor brush. No, not that one. Okay. So, oh crap, what did I do? Why is this not working for me? Does my keyboard not work? Oh, no, it does. Okay. Every time there's somebody in the waiting room, it makes my keyboard not work. All right, sorry. I swear I thought this would be more interesting, but now I'm not sure how to make it interesting without being totally boring. This is actually fun, but totally boring work, right, Clay? Okay, so anyway, so
yes.
I'm going to just make a rainbow. That's what I'm going for here. Totally boring. See, you guys think it's so cool, but it's kind of not cool. Okay, and then I'm going to use a clipping mask, and I'm going to clip it to that. And I think that's cool, but it needs to stand out a little bit more because on the background, these lighter colors just don't show up very well. So I'm going to add a really tiny drop shadow to this, which is saved from when I was playing with it before. It's maybe a little darker. Okay. And then I'm going to just move this here. Ah, crap, I screw up all the time. Why do they let me do this stuff? Like, you know, pretend I know what I'm doing. Okay. And let's see. What's cool about Photoshop are all these neat, oops, I didn't mean to make it like that. All these neat tools that we have where we can actually caught it. All right, I am going to cheat here because I took a little while to fix this one before, and I'm going to pull this up from what I already did. Okay. Oh, wait, you know what? Just kidding. Okay. I thought that looked cool. So what I did is I took the same thing here, the same layer that I created these colors on, and I put it over this to make it stand out. Haha, you see what I did there? And then I made the Born to curve. This needed a little something here. Anyway, so I'm not sure if you're kind of following me here. I'm not even sure if I'm making any sense, but this is kind of what I was thinking this cover needed. So before I go any further, this is where I landed. And why is this still showing me there? Do you think that this looks better than it did? This is the original. No, it's not. It's like, see,
I think it looks a lot better.
I had this all figured out where it was going to be really cool to show it, and then like I just totally screwed up my own plan. Where did the subtitle go? That was anyway. I don't have it somewhere else.
I think it looked great. You gotta love the live though, right?
Yeah. Well, I like to pretend for Facebook like I have my shit together, but I totally don't.
When you post stuff on Facebook, you have time to work out the kinks before you share anything. So it's,
Isn't that the truth?
yeah.
I just can't find her. Oh, you know what? I think I edited it. But this was the plain font before, so you can see before and after.
I love that, and I think that the text and font and everything really has a lot to do with the look. So I think it's important that people pay attention to that. I've been struggling so long with mine. I love what you did here. It looks great.
Oh, it's Missy. Hi, Missy. Sorry, I didn't know you were talking. I can't actually see anybody right now because I'm checking. Is Nikki in here? I'm afraid to know what Nikki thinks. You know what? I think,
yeah, I am.
so I think that what the original one was missing was just more color. I think that what you had here was really cool. I think that the font matches the style of your illustration because it's like a sketch sort of look. It needed to be bigger, and I didn't have this font, first of all. And I thought that overall, this one, I mean, at least to me, I just like it better. I like this font better, and I think it still matches. I like how this is round, and actually this could probably get bumped up a little bit so that it kind of forms a circle in your, and then what I did here that I didn't share is I took the, this is truly, I guess what I'm trying to show you guys is to kind of think outside the box. So you have a canvas here, and you have these files that your illustrator gives you, or in Nikki's case, she did it herself, but you have the flexibility to grab stuff and duplicate it, right? So you can copy this and then move it up here to kind of fill in this space. So when I was working on this cover, Nikki, I did that because when I moved your title over, it needed that to fill in that empty space. So,
yep.
So then I grabbed this piece here. Oops, I meant to cut that. I created that circle and it won't go away. I forget how I get it to go away.
You probably have to turn off that shape layer.
Yeah, I don't know where I put it. Do you lose layers like I do? Because oh, maybe it's here.
I do. I go back through and I rename them because.
Clay, you're a genius.
I know. Well.
This is what a real professional.
Yeah.
This is a real professional. Clay went to school for this, and
I didn't.
Oh, really?
No, I'm all self-taught.
Yeah, me too. I YouTube Academy myself.
Right.
Yeah. I've been working in Photoshop for about 5 years now. And I know just enough about Photoshop and InDesign to get through with book stuff, to formatting and cover design and stuff. So my history is actually with cake design. I used to own a bakery and I made these crazy cakes, and believe it or not, that has helped me so much with knowing where to place things with covers, because you kind of have to do the same thing with cakes. So anyway, Nikki, this actually, and looking at it again, this might be better with a little bit less. Oh no, I can't do it that way. It needs another layer here. Anyway, it might be better to not be so bright. What do you think, Clay?
I really like this font. Looking at this, I think there's a couple changes that I would suggest further. One, the font feels a little bit thin, a little bit slender to me. So I would keep looking, at least for the word stand out. The rest of it probably works fine, but if you, to make those a little bit bolder on the title, to make that really strong, to find something that kind of works
You mean
as
my
this.
fake gold didn't cut it for you?
It helped. It helped a little bit, but
All right. Yeah.
so anyway, that's the one thing that stands out to me. And then the shade of green in the background, I might tweak that a little bit and try some different options there.
Well, I have to give you the honest truth here. Everything in my house is this color, like that color right there.
It's your go-to.
Dishes, my bedding, like that's my color. It speaks to my soul, so I tend to gravitate towards that. And what's funny about that is that Cindy hates green, and I wasn't allowed to put any green in her book. She even complained about the grass, and I'm like, what color should the grass be other than green?
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Purple grass.
So I feel you here with that. I think that I don't disagree. I'll tell you. I love this font. I've been trying to use it, but it might.
I do love the font. The font is really awesome.
Canterbury. It's my new fave.
For me, anytime any hand-drawn font that still has a lot of structure to it is very useful, and that's what I think, especially for kids' books, what we tend to be drawn to. There's, it's not just sloppy handwritten. There's a lot of structure to the letters, but yet they still have that the personality, kind of like a little bit of soul to them, a little bit of hand-drawn artfulness to them.
We before we decided to do this, we were talking about like what kind of things we would want to discuss live and how we could help and that kind of thing. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the personality and the feeling that is brought out with the different fonts. So for me with this one, you know what else I did that I wasn't sure if I liked it? Hang on. This.
Oh, a little glow. Nice. I like that actually.
The reason why I did that, sorry, I actually meant to turn that back on, is because stand out to me is like you're on a stage, you're standing out, your spotlight is on you. And so this was like a subtle spotlight. And I did not put it on the chameleon here. I wanted him to, so the contrast between the background now and the chameleon, he definitely stands out because of that. So sorry, that was one other thing. So other than the font though, you kind of like these changes, Clay? You're my idol when it comes to cover design. I mean, and in life, obviously.
Well, I mean, we all have opinions on things. No, I really like this, the glow coming down because, now he looks like he's warming himself on the branch. That all of a sudden there's kind of a sense of warmth to the whole image that I think was missing. I think that's what, with the green wasn't quite sitting right for me, is that it was a little bit chilly in terms of the overall color scheme.
Yeah, I can take that for sure.
But you add this glow and it really warms it up.
Okay, and then what was I going to tell you? My mom brain kicked in. Damn it. So
this is why I made you go first.
Thanks. So everybody can laugh at me first. I got it. Thanks.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's fine. I would do the same to you if I asked you, I'd be like, no, you go first.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, I in order for me to know if I like something, I have to walk away from it and come back to it later. And when I walked away to yell at my kids to be quiet, I came back and I sat down and I still liked it. I always know with fresh morning eyes whether or not something's going to stick. So I would have to go back and look at this again in the morning, Nikki, to know if I still liked it. But I literally got this, I think, at 6:30 or 7. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to play with it. Did you play with this at all while we were chatting?
I did not. I was just trying to get files downloaded and everything, so I don't have anything to show there. But you know, the whole idea of what you're talking about, though, with coming back.
I didn't.
Sorry, go.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks for jumping in. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, the whole idea of coming back to something later is I find that so critically important, not only with design but with writing as well. And you guys probably have figured that out. But like, you know, when I would finish writing a page or a whole book, you know, I'll go back through it page by page, read it again, and there will be certain lines that like, hey, that just doesn't sit quite right. And the same is true with design. You know, some detail doesn't quite sit right, and so I always trust that instinct because that's usually an indication that something needs to be further tweaked a little bit. And,
speaking of that,
until it clicks.
My T-shirts came in for my Kickstarter, and it turns out they don't rhyme.
How so?
I didn't have Nikki edit that. So yeah, definitely come back to it. But I think what we had started talking about though was the personality of fonts. So just to talk about that really quick while you're getting your homework done, Clay. There's different types of personalities. Hello there. And each one brings a different vibe. So I personally, for kids' books, unless it's something that's scary or like Christmassy or whatever, I always sort of gravitate towards playful fonts because it's a kid's book. If the illustration is very sketchy, not sketchy like dark alley at night sketchy. I mean, like if it was sketched and sort of hand drawn, has that hand drawn feeling. I try to mimic that usually. But fonts definitely have a vibe. So, and I don't know how to say that where I don't sound like a total idiot, but there's definitely a feeling to every font. And I think that it's really important that you match the cover's feeling. So with that chameleon one that we were just showing you, I think that it has like I mean, it's not like super playful, so I didn't want to get a super playful, bouncy title like I did for Cindy's book. Claire, whenever you're ready, you can jump in. I'm just talking here. But,
okay.
I'll show you. Just see. So with Molly's, I'm sure you guys all know Yana. So Yana asked me to redo her Molly book, and this was the old cover. And this cover just didn't work for a lot of reasons, but if you're looking strictly at the text treatment, it was pretty terrible, and she came to me knowing that and said that, so I'm not talking badly or anything, but this just does not match at all. For me, this is too busy, I fill in the blank. There's a lot going on here. So when I was looking at fonts for her cover, I kind of landed on a few, but ultimately decided on these because they're very magical feeling. They're kind of whimsical. I removed the O and replaced it with the tooth. I actually took that tooth out of her hand and redrew it larger up here. But would you agree that this is kind of like a wizardy, magical font? It gives that vibe to me. I don't know how to say that where I don't sound like a total moron, but they each
Oh, it
have
does.
a font. Yeah, and then with her Christmas book, we needed a Christmas vibe. And, you know, Christmassy has like the, you know, also magical, but I don't know if that makes any sense. How would you describe Christmas fonts?
Well, also maybe a sense of wonder, sense of.
Yeah, like so these like have a lot of
Yeah.
swirls, and I also really like stars. If you can't tell, I put them on everything. I also like a lot of movement. When we're talking about composition, you obviously need to have the title be your focal point. And I think a lot of people really focus on the credits, but the credits for me are always like, where can I fit them in where they're not going to be a distraction from everything else? Not everyone agrees with me on that. I always leave off the written by, illustrated by, because that's what the title page is for. Again, just my opinion. You can always take this exact thing and then on the title page add in the credits, you know, the roles, I mean, who did what. Another way to make this very clear is to make the illustrator's name smaller than the author's name, or put it under it. Laura's name here is a little bit smaller than Yana's name. So composition wise, I took out all of the other characters and I actually redrew all of this to match the illustrator style. And I filled in the background a little bit more because it was just not, it was not anything like this before. So do you have anything else to add in terms of what I'm trying to say? My brain isn't working, Clay. I'm truly embarrassed,
No.
but also.
Oh no, I think you're doing great. You know, one of the things I'm guessing you did here, as you can tell, is that, you know, what I see a lot when covers come through in the group, or you know, people post something, is they'll take a font and they'll pick a decent font, but then they'll just type it in. It's all the same size, it's all straight across, and it's not adjusted. But you actually want to take very good care about the spaces between your fonts and make sure that the spaces are even, that they feel good to the eye. This is there's several different principles here, kerning and tracking and leading and all that sort of thing that you would hear in typography circles. But the point is to get the typography to work well together. And so, you know, the T tucks in really nicely there under the M and the A. And you know, you have a little bit of an angle, so this whole word kind of has a curve to it, tooth, and which echoes the, you know, the curve on Molly's up at the top. So I think that's what you've done here is just, you know, display those principles in action. You can also see one of the things I've mentioned a lot in feedback on people's posts is making sure that there is visual hierarchy. And that is very clear here. The big word that you're focusing on is magical. So that is something, as you're thinking about your own title, what is the most important word in your title? In this case, it's not tooth. People, you know, a tooth is fine. That's what the book is about. But what people are really drawn to is the word magic, and it happens to be Molly's. And so, so that puts all of those elements in proper hierarchy and allows that big word, the word that captures people's attention, to stand out. And then by adding, you know, you've added sparkles to it here and there, you can.
I like the sparkles, Clay.
Yeah, well, you know, it draws your attention to it. It emphasizes those things, and it also it connects it to the background. So you have stars in the background, and then you have them echoed on the text. And so what it ends up doing is that this whole piece, the title plus the illustration in the background, feels all of one composition. So it's not two different things. And that's a lot of times what happens is you have a nice illustration and then you know, you slap text on top of it, but there's not an integration. And this, you feel that integration. It feels like that it's a single composition.
To your point there, I think a lot of people that I've worked with get so married to the illustration being taking up every square inch of the cover, and really you want them to work together. I mean, really, as you said before, the title needs to be the focal point and come first, and the illustration secondary. And I personally like when the characters interact with the title so that they're kind of all one cohesive thing. What I do on a lot of covers is I'll add something like wind, and I'll have it going through the title, or I'll put the character in front of one word and have the other words behind the character. You know, this one, obviously she's reaching for the tooth that's in the title. You want to also think about movement. So she's looking to the right, which is where the book opens up, obviously. Our eyes read left to right and in a zigzag. So you're looking like this. So one thing that I try to focus on when I'm doing covers too is you have this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. It's a Z. Covers that don't work well are covers that don't have thank you. How are you doing that? That's cool. You guys
It's
your Zoom tricks, Clay.
There's Zoom annotation features that you can get up at the top. So
Oh, you're so that's very cool. Thank you for your
but anyway, yes.
yeah, but you know what, I mean, I'm not sure if that makes sense, but there's some covers where and also like can I just show you, it works the same on the interior pages, and I hope Valerie won't mind me showing just one page from her book. I'm working on a book right now for for Valerie Raymer, and where is that one page that I'm looking for? Oh, sorry, this one. So the original artwork looks like this. And the problem with this, in the same way that I was talking about the cover, is if you put text here and you put text here, you're not quite sure what to read first. So do you read the left or the top? And, you know, it's kind of confusing to the reader. You know, do I read this side first and then this? I'm not sure if that makes sense, but when you reverse them and you put the text here, it's very clear. You're reading top to bottom, left to right. So I find myself doing this a lot with illustrations that I'm provided for interior books, where I'm switching the reverse of an illustration so that it reads naturally and that you don't stump your reader even a little bit subconsciously as they're flipping through the book. And it's the same thing for the cover. You want it to feel natural. So if you're putting text in really weird way, you know, placements there on the cover, it just, you know, they won't be able to pinpoint what's not working, but it just won't feel natural. Anyway, sorry, Clay, do you want to jump in with your nacho cover?
Yes, I sure can. Let's do that.
And then I can get out of the spotlight because my face feels red. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing.
All right. Is mine cover coming up?
Woohoo! This is
All
such
right.
a cool cover. Such a cool concept.
I know, I love this cover, and I think this already has so many things going for it that I just love. And so as I look at this, the illustration, you got you know, a joyful illustration. You already have this chip who's jumping out of all of the average chips down at the bottom, and so there's the glow behind him. It's great. So I'm already kind of in love with the illustration. So the thing is, though, again, this is why we emphasize how important title is. Like if you see this thumbnail on a site, you can't even read the title. You see what looks like a tortilla chip, but you can't see the title at all. And so the title really needs to be a lot larger and really capture attention. So so again, you know, having the layers helps a ton here. And so this is the layer of the entire illustration. What I'm going to do here, by the way, if you right click, you can, on any part of the image, you can see the layers that are under that, and then you can pick your layer. And so what I'm going to do is just layer, and the chips underneath there are a separate layer, and we can move them around separately. So now I can do this and all of that sort of thing. So first of all, I think I'm actually going to make him a little bigger and set him off center. And this might be where some illustration adjustments might help as well. Maybe give him a little bit of momentum upward to the right as well. And again, some of that can be done by in the illustrations themselves rather than me as the designer kind of dragging things around, but it's certainly something we can do here. So, and now we have this not so average chip. So I'm going to, first of all, before we get into the font there, whoops. I'm gonna get rid of this this bar behind because I don't think we're gonna use that. So, and I went looking for this font and couldn't find it. I think it was paid or something like that. So I'm just going to find one that's kind of similar. And look through them, which can be helpful. But I think I know what we're going to do here. Sorry, my window's in the way.
Oh, I like that font.
Which one's that? The one that popped up? Oh, yeah. Any of them. They're just all.
Oh, yeah.
So this one isn't quite the one I was looking for. I think we'll try it. And this is, again, is where we'll mess around a little bit. So obviously it's really spaced out, and that's because the letter spacing right here is set at 381. Well, 0 is your standard letter spacing. So that's what the natural spacing between the fonts, between the letters in the font is. And so if you increase this, it's usually in increments of 10 or 20. You can see that, if I get up to 100 and 120, they're spaced out a little bit more. So we'll bring this down a little bit. And then font is still bigger than I want, so we'll bring it down a little more. And I'm also going to drag this up above. Oh, get it. There we go. Up above Mr. Chip. And we are left aligned. What I may end up doing is actually breaking each word apart on its own layer, just so we can mess with them separately and move them around. So, and then, one of the things too is the spacing between lines, and so that's adjusted here, and so it's 120 point font, so 120 would be kind of your natural break, natural spacing, but a lot of times it's you want a little bit less than that, especially for titles and that sort of thing. Again, a lot of this is feeling it out. One of the things that again you have to do with almost every font. There's very few that have this down. Like the space between the A and the V is pretty wide, and the space between the V and the E is very tight. So it's important that we adjust those. And again, that I usually just adjust these here, pick one letter, and adjust them until they feel right, and a little more space in there. And now you can see the gap here is similar to the gap between the A and the V. This feels just a touch tight. And so I'll do that with almost every title treatment I do. Sometimes I'll even do it with body text as well. Again, just to it gives a more professional treatment to it, approach to it, like it's like the details. It's attention to detail that is necessary for those sorts of things. So. So here we go. We already got Nacho Average Chip, and this isn't probably the best font. I'd probably look for something a little sharper. That's good. I've posted before. I like a lot of Kimberly Guesswine's fonts, and so these KG ones are hers. And so um, a lot of times finding the right one is just a matter of trying. Sometimes it looks, you find one like, oh, that's going to be great, and you get it in place, and it really doesn't work all that well. And so that's where really downloading a ton of fonts here. I like this one a little better. It's a little sharper. But downloading a lot of fonts and trying a lot of them, you're not going to know until you try a lot of the times. So it's really worth going through. I've said before, I go through a lot of times 20 or 30 fonts before I settle. Oops, created a new text layer there. Before I settle on one for a title. So we'll just adjust these a little bit here. I won't get in careful detail. Oops. And that's where, you know, the time that is required to get it just right is significant, because there's a lot of that kind of adjustments that need to happen. So Katie showed you about putting text on a line. Another tool that exists in Photoshop is warping text, and I'll use this sometimes. It's a little bit of a cheaper effect, but it can get the job done. There's different, as you see, different curves that you can apply here. I'm going to try. They always apply way too much effect there, but yeah. So for instance, something like this. All of a sudden it gives a little bit of personality to it, and it kind of gives you a sense that there's an energy of up and to the right, some motion. You know, he's rising above the pile of chips, and that's what you want him to be doing. Now, one of the challenges here, and again, I haven't spent enough time with this ahead of time to solve all of these issues, but quite honestly, you know, the text is covering up too much of Mr. Chip here, so we need to bump him down. And this is where, again, I love to get a little bit of interaction between the text, the title, and the illustration itself. Because what it does is it creates almost a 3D effect on the cover by putting the title behind him. The title is big and important, but it actually drives your attention to the chip because he is in the foreground. So by putting the title behind him, he's suddenly in the foreground, and that's an important, pardon me, important way to do that. Again, I would try to get a little bit more of this energy, and this might happen through adjusting the design, where he's really leaping out from this pile of chips instead of just kind of hovering over it. Now you'll see in the background, some of this glow has moved because we moved the pile of chips down. So this might be something where we drag this down. And then maybe extend this upward a little bit just to fill that. But one of the things you had in your design, Katie, and that's I think is also important, is when you're adding a glow, you're really wanting to have that glow come from behind your main character. So it's causing the eye to focus on that area, and it might be a subtle gradient like you had with the green behind the chameleon. Obviously, this is a little bit more intentional and less subtle to have all of these sun rays coming out from behind the chip. But again, that he's the center point here, and that's where we want that glow to be coming from. So I might bump him down. We might do a little bit of this too. And then again, I'm kind of in the same camp when it comes to the bylines, the credits. We'll fit them in at some point. We do need to make room for them, but it's kind of tempting sometimes for us to make them important on our covers, and they really do very little to sell your book, and they can be kind of a distraction if you will, to the other stuff, the important stuff that's going on the cover. So now, by taking that strip off the bottom, we are missing some color here. You know, there's some nice red before that has disappeared. But that's where I think we could play with some gradients here. And I would similarly, you'd done some effects on your title on the Magical Tooth book. And actually, would you mind pulling up that original cover of the Magical Tooth one that you showed a second ago, Katie?
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen again?
Yeah, let me jump out for a second because I wanted to comment on that just briefly.
Okay, let me, I gotta grab it again, sorry. I put it away.
That's all right. Just wanted to speak to effects like that. There's a lot of effects that you can add, whether it's drop shadows or glows or embossing, kind of a rounded feel to it. Whenever you're doing that, it really has to be both intentional and in severe moderation, or else it looks
There you go.
overly done. And so I think just looking at this here,
Things.
so this thing has, look, just to count here, the title up here at the top has a gradient fill from pink to white with kind of a little, I don't know, it's got a little wave behind it. So they've colored that in to kind of give it more of a chrome look to it. It's got a dark blue stroke around it. It's got a white glow outside of the dark blue stroke, and then it has a drop shadow behind it, a heavy drop shadow. And so there's basically 4 effects, and the result is that you can barely read this, especially at a small size. There's so much applied to the text that the text becomes much less effective. And then the text at the bottom, you know, we have the credit lines at the bottom. They're pretty simple text, but then we have a thick blue stroke and a white glow on those as well. So that's again where I think it's helpful to limit the application of effect.
You still there, Clay? Can anybody else hear him, or am I just me that lost it?
I think he lost his connection because his picture's gone. It's
Okay.
silent. I get what he says though, because
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot going on this cover.
yeah.
You know, the saying "less is more" definitely rings true with cover design. And so by taking these characters out and enlarging her and really focusing on the title, this book, she's shared with me that you know, this with the new cover, it's selling so much better. Probably because people can read the cover from an Amazon thumbnail now, which is another point we wanted to discuss. It's just making sure that at a thumbnail size, you know, when you're looking at it really tiny, that you can read it. Clay said Zoom crashed on his computer. Anyway, so he'll grab. I'll let him back in when he gets that fixed. So anyway, so you can see with that book that it really needed some help. Now with his nacho cover that he was working on, I really liked what he was doing with it. I think that it does need some more color, and we need for the nacho to be the focal point outside of the title. This pile of chips should be less bold, I think. So if I'm looking at this is all together. Okay, so we're going to separate that. So if we're looking at this, sorry, we're going to separate this. And now he's here. And so what I like to do is, and Clay may jump in and do this totally different than me, but I like to add a layer behind it and make it white. There we go, there he is. But then I can reduce the opacity here and make it more dull. You there, Clay? I let him back in. You saw me do it, right? Oh, he says this is joining. Okay. Anyway, so maybe not that light, but this is a good way to really make the focal point what you're looking for, rather than in art. There's a thing about contrast. So whatever has the most contrast is where your eyes are going to go. Clay, you back?
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Left me hanging. I had to like go off script here.
I bet you did. Zoom just crashed on me. It just disappeared off my screen completely.
I'm
Just
so sorry.
sorry about that.
Anyway, so I just jumped in to keep talking, but
Yeah, go ahead.
that one effect is to create a white background at the same shape as the layer above it, and then reduce the opacity to kind of minimize the make it more dull. Anyway, I'm gonna let you jump back on.
I like that idea. So, yeah, that can really help with that. There are as well down here. What you can do is apply an adjustment layer to. So this layer of chips down here at the bottom, if we wanted to lighten it up a little bit, you can apply this adjustment layer and maybe reduce the contrast a little bit, and or reduce the brightness, and that can that creates this layer on top of it that I can turn on and off, and it basically applies it to anything underneath there. If I create this as a clip and mask, then it applies it only to the chips on the pile, so only to the layer that it's masked to. And so that's another way to go about that. But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. So you're creating even further distinction between the pile of chips on the ground and the nacho average chip who's jumping up in joy here. All right, so back to our text. I would try a couple things here. Again, this is similar to what you had done, Katie, but trying a gradient. Oops, not a color overlay. I want a gradient overlay. And this we might pull from, or make it maybe a stronger red. And this maybe mess around with this a little bit, and then we can change the angle of it. But then if we add to that, let's see if we did a stroke around that, and this might be a little bit thinner. Let's mess around with that a little bit to see how that plays. Again, maybe just a little bit of contour on that, and maybe over some rounded contour on the letters. So I would probably end up messing around with this for 20 minutes, and I won't bore you with all of that. Just to try out some different features. And the gradient isn't quite right, the colors aren't quite right yet, all of that sort of thing. But this is where you could use a color like this or an effect like this to really draw the reader's attention to your title and make it stand out from the background. Again, the contrast really is pretty critical here. I might also drag this a little bit to give this a little bit of motion that direction. And then again, yeah, there's no, I haven't really implemented any visual hierarchy here where what are your important phrases? And so in this case, I might even do Nacho in a different font or something like that. And this is where I would spend quite a bit more time playing around with different options here to getting it where we'd want it to be. But yeah, then in terms of bylines, credit lines, where do you have some space that's not going to interfere with your composition once you have your composition in place? They really can be to some degree an afterthought. Putting them down here across the bottom is going to be a little bit difficult because there's a lot of dark and light shades in this pile of chips. So I might consider something like over here in this open space and slipping them down in there. But again, I think what we're really trying to do is emphasize the title, the cover, your character, making sure that everybody is drawn first to that. So now, if I make this small, there's still a lot of work to do on this cover, but suddenly you can read the cover, you can read the title at a small size on a thumbnail. You can tell a lot more what's happening. And so while this is not as complete as what you had with your example, Katie, I think you can see where this could go by taking some steps to really emphasize the title and play with that. So
I would add some motion.
Go ahead.
Think about motion with the. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. I get all excited. I like to draw.
Please do. No, go for it.
I like to draw and stuff. So for him, he's not like he's got his arms up, and there should be some motion lines or something.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I might draw some, just some streaks to make it look like, maybe you can't see my hands. I don't know how to do that. But
I can, but yeah. So, so.
What is the word? Oh, there it is. Annotate.
Yeah, see under there. Go ahead and
get rid of me.
pick
Look,
your color.
I might do something like, no, not like that. Sorry, I messed up. How do you get her off it?
There's a clear button next to your annotation there.
Right, see? I'm learning all the time, Clay. Okay, so I might have the lines going off like this and maybe going in and out of the words.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But
yep.
I don't like that one.
And little things like, it would be if he had a bent knee here where that leg was jumping up and he'd look like he's a little bit more like he's pushing off of these chips. I think that might help with that sense of energy.
The liquefy tool.
That's right. We'll liquefy his leg. That's right. So.
No, that's the job of the nacho dip.
So he probably does need a little cheese dripping off the corner.
For sure. I was thinking it would be cool to have cheese dripping off of the letters.
Yeah, right.
I get really annoying with people's drawing. I'm sure the illustrators hate me because I always add stuff to their drawings.
See, that's the thing. I can't draw a thing, so I design, but I don't illustrate at all. So yeah, I have to take what's given to me. You could put one would be interesting to consider, maybe a bowl of guac or something like that in the background over here, just to add a splash of color, a little more visual interest. It might be worth trying some things like that too.
When you were gone, I was bringing up the fact that when it comes to drawing and art in general, the focal point, whether it's intentional or not, is always going to go to the part that has the highest contrast. So the highest contrast here is this area here, which is the cover. Which is the title, which is good. I might say that we need some more contrast here. So maybe darken this area up if we're going to have it light here. That's what I would change. That's the only thing I would change. But I love the motion.
Yep.
This is like very Nacho Libre with this.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Kind of like a flag. Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah. And so I think that's what you can play into, where it's basically takes a playbook from Doritos um, and uses those kind of lettering and really kind of plays off the nacho idea even further. So
Well, I like it.
good. Yeah.
We fought over this cover, guys. You don't know, but we did. Clay called dibs first, so I was nice to him and I let him have it. But he even tried to say, if you're gonna do this one, do it good. And
Well,
I
see,
don't know that I don't know this trick about the to wave it. I've never tried that before.
haven't you? Yeah. That one's kind of fun. I use that
Yeah,
pretty often to get a little energy. Um, and one of the things you did, which I do a lot with titles, and again, it adds energy, is I'll either make some letters bigger or smaller, or I might bring this one down, but then also bring it off the line a little bit. And instead of getting just a straight line, it gives you a bit more energy to the text. And
that's one of my favorite tricks.
yeah, I do that, especially with kids' books. It's kind of, I almost feel a little like I'm cheating some of the time because I do it so often, but it just almost always gives a little bit of extra punch that you just can't get otherwise. And it takes a kind of a straight font like this is, and adds some additional personality to it. So that's something you can definitely mess with. There's lots of tools in the toolkit, and you just have to kind of try different things. And sometimes you think something's going to work, and it does. Sometimes it doesn't. And but that's the job of the designer, is to keep playing with that. And so, did you want to tackle another one? I don't know. We're an hour in here.
I mean, my kids.
Or take questions.
The baby's in bed. I'm good if you're good.
I'm good. So.
I'm not nearly as prepared for the next one. I spent the hour I had today doing the one that I started. So the other one that I had picked out was this turkey one. That's not that one. Oh, but with the with the motion lines, they have some here that they're just kind of subtle. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so we've got that one. This is the other one that I had started to play with. And actually, I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I'm not even going to try. I don't want to embarrass myself or insult you by trying to pronounce your name. But this one is actually, I really like it as it is. I mean, do you play? I mean, I think that you can do more work with the font treatment, but this looks hand-drawn to me. It's definitely rasterized, at least, where they added a background of hand-drawn highlight, which is cool because it's not show average font.
Not show average. It looks like, the way I can tell it's a font is the eyes are shaped the same, but yeah, I think the highlights in the background.
They rasterized it and then added that
yep.
white that made it look different, which I like it a lot. I like
that. It's a nice treatment.
It matched the illustration. So for me, there's a couple things that I wanted to change with this. For one thing, the font is not large enough. I think that it at a thumbnail size, it's going to be difficult to read the not so thankful part. Which, maybe that's not important because it's a Thanksgiving book. Really, you grab the attention of the reader if they're looking for, or the buyer rather, if they're looking for a Thanksgiving book. So this may not be so terrible, but I did want to just try a few things, and I didn't get so far into it, but I thought that the background needed a gradient. The problem with this, the reason why I didn't get far enough into it, is because it's all on one layer. All of the color is on one layer. So I actually had to create not a clipping mask, I had to create a custom selection so that I could only gradient behind the turkey, and this is just still too heavy for me now that I come back to it. But what I'm not getting here is the feeling that you're not so thankful. Yes, he's mopey. Yes, his head is down, and you can tell that he's not so thankful. But I think that it was missing like tears. So I added some tears. So he's really not thankful. It's also missing some motion for me. So before we jumped on here, I had started to play with this. So I grabbed a leaf down here, and I had planned on creating like some sort of motion in the background where it's kind of interacting with the text, but I didn't get to the text quite yet. So now I get to embarrass myself while I'm looking for fonts. But I think that the written by and illustrated by is not totally necessary on the font. Is this also on the, oh crap. It's on there too. Okay, that's fine. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover this up. So when you're providing files to your formatter, I will tell you that it is light years easier if everything is on separate layers. So this Illustrator basically created a color layer and then a line layer. Sorry, Facebook Marketplace notifications, which is fine, but you know, having the lines and the color on separate layers really does nothing for the formatter and in a way that we need it to be. So I can't move anything without having to actually grab it, and it just makes it take longer. So I'm not sure that I love this quite yet. Like Clay, I had some time to play with the other one a little bit more, and I found some fonts that I thought worked well, and I had a chance to kind of get in there with it. But what was the not so thankful for Thanksgiving. Okay. So I almost always put mine on the different layers, but I think that I'm just broken and I do things backwards. And I'm gonna just make this darker so that I can actually see it. And then I start to play with fonts to see what might match. See, I just love that Canterbury font. I really dig it. I know it's thin, but that's like, I've been dying to use that one. I bought it a while ago. Whoever gets the next book, whatever book I format next is getting that font.
It's getting it no matter what. Even if it's a science fiction book, it's still getting it.
Yeah. Halloween, it's coming up. So, you know, this process, like Clay said, is a lot of hit and miss. I like this one because it's playful, but this is not really a playful book. So we're looking for a vibe that's kind of, I mean, you don't want sad, but you don't want peppy either.
One thing that I would mention here, you know, the font selection really is so crucial. And one of the things I often try to do is look at the illustrations themselves and try to match not just mood, but also kind of almost the strokes of the illustrator's illustrations. So like, you know, in this case, we have like dark strokes around the outside. We've got some thin ones here, you know. So getting something that has that similar, it's some fuzz in some of those, you know, some of the roughness of the brush strokes, the pencil strokes.
It matches pretty well. It's not as
yeah.
rough.
So say something like this.
Yeah.
No, but it's in the same genre. It looks like it. I often think, you know, I want something that looks like it could have been drawn by the illustrator's hand, where the illustrator style is very similar to that, and that again gives it more of a cohesive feel to the whole cover, because it feels like it's one composition by one person instead of, you know, an illustrator doing something and then a designer slapping something on top of it. It brings it together.
I totally concur.
Sorry, I'll stay out of your way.
No. I appreciate this. I'm just filling up air here, Clay. I'm faking it as I go.
That's right.
I don't know if you had the old Photoshop, but in the old Photoshop, if you push Shift and did this, it kept the shape. But now they have it so if you push Shift and you reduce the size, it's a free form.
I can't tell you how much the new keyboard shortcuts drive me nuts, but yeah.
Let's add this there. So, I mean, I don't know that I'm gonna like this yet, but what I'm going for here is like a bold look, not so thankful for. I don't know if I'm gonna like it. Usually I have these ideas and sometimes they work out and sometimes they just look really stupid and then I have to start over. So when I comment on the group, I often lose sleep over some of the advice I give with covers because I'm not quite sure if it's going to work out the way I have it in my head for you guys. And a lot of you don't know how to use Photoshop or don't have it at your, you're not able to try out these things. And that means you have to go back and forth to your formatter. And I just feel bad when things aren't going to work out the way I have them in my brain. So just so you know, I lose sleep over this. Nobody cares. Nobody's pitching in to say, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Clay, you're supposed to laugh at my joke. Give me a courtesy laugh here. Don't leave me out to dry.
I'm laughing. I'm just muted.
Kidding. So this needs some personality to it, but I'm kind of digging the emphasis on thankful and Thanksgiving. Maybe it needs, maybe not needs a much bigger.
One of the things you could do here, I remember doing this in a book a while ago, is if you have an element in your title that's repeated, like thankful, Thanksgiving, actually aligning them so that the thank and thank is right on top of each other. So that might be something to try here. You've got everything center aligned, but
yeah, I almost never end up where I start.
So, but you know, that kind of yeah, so that makes it a little hard to read, but you know, you play with it a little bit. But that repetition, again, with any design, one of the things that you aim to do is repeat certain things so that there's an intentionality to it. And when you have repetition in your title, you can use that to your benefit by having the design kind of emphasize that.
You know what? I think I'm not going to do that. How do I go back? Okay. What I like to do, and I do it a lot with interiors, is I add a layer and I draw a line. This is the way I cheat doing what you did with a skill that I still didn't know. I didn't pick up how to do it, but I wasn't able to see what you were doing when you were doing it, but I draw a line.
Oh yeah.
I create a working path with that.
So are you using a tablet for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This just takes forever. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but you know, I like to do things the hard way. Okay.
And again, with something like this, sometimes it's actually better to do it hand drawn. You get a little bit more of a natural organic line, whereas if you just use kind of a vector curve, you might not get quite a, or might get almost be too precise, whereas this gives a little bit more.
What you were saying before was to kind of, this not going to do anything. With these kinds of lines though, it's really kind of annoying because you have to find a sweet spot where that N isn't going to be into the G. So sometimes when I create these custom lines, I actually have to go back and make like one of the letters its own layer and just fit it in there where it looks like it needs to.
I've done that.
There. Okay. Anyway, so this part, as you were saying before, is very time consuming. And then I go back and I almost always change the sizes of font of the text so that it's a little bit more interesting. But it's just, this part is so boring to watch. Sorry, guys.
Not at all. It's, it's
Doing great.
I don't know who just said that, but thanks. I'm not good at public speaking, like, at all. And when I saw the numbers going up over like 10, I started to panic. I never thought this was going to be as popular as it turned out being.
It's fascinating to watch you. We get to watch every thought. This is fascinating.
We're all here because we're interested in this, so you guys are doing awesome. This is Misty, by
thanks.
the way. Hi, guys.
Hey, Misty, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thanks for guys. Thanks for showing up. This does mean a lot, and I do hope it's valuable. Our goal here is to kind of give you a little insight into some of these thoughts, because there's, with all of design, just like with writing or with illustration, there's a real intentionality that comes with it, where you're trying to capture the mood of the story, the feeling of the illustrations, and enhance them. And so that's why design takes a while, and why it's such a critical part of the book crafting process, and especially for covers, of course. So anyway.
And you guys now all know that we just kind of fudge it until it looks good.
Well, again, it's just like writing. Your first draft never is very good, but you get your first thoughts on paper, and then you start tearing out the stuff that's terrible and trying new ideas until it all comes together. And
I don't know if this is going to be better than what was there, because the way that it was I really did like it. I'm not just saying that. I'm usually super opinionated and kind of, dare I say, bitchy? Ask my husband would say bitchy. Sorry. This is not a PG rated show, guys. I apologize. But this is just playing with it to see if maybe it could be cool another way. Where is the thankful line? There it is, way up there. So I like to use the same curvature when I'm doing things like this, the line, so they match. And I like to tuck things in, but they don't always, I have to come back to them and make sure that I can read it later. Because sometimes when you get a little bit too crazy with placing things, they don't flow right. And this might just be too large.
this is also where, this is actually, I think I like what you're doing here, Katie. This might be another place where, in order to emphasize the theme of the book, you do something with the word not, where then the word not is in a different color, stronger font, basically just a kind of a not, where you're really kind of giving strength to that. Is not so thankful for Thanksgiving.
What about we can fake bold it, Clay?
There you go. It's always fake bold. Always fake bold.
I was watching some YouTube something, and they said fake bolding is like for really amateur designers, and I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I shouldn't be calling myself that.
I fake bolded all of the text in my newest book, the body text, because it was too slender. So I added a 1/4 point of stroke around all of the body text in InDesign. just to give it just a little bit more weight.
If it needs it, it needs it. And if you
Yeah.
have the crisp feature on here, this is a good trick for anybody who has Photoshop but doesn't know how to use it very well. This crisp feature saved me when I was doing Cindy's book, because I was using a font that Lollipop. Oh, I was going to type Lollipop, but it's the font, not the word. Oh my God, I need sleep. I have a lot of kids. For anybody who doesn't know, I have 5 children. And my youngest is 3 months
I
old.
was going to say, you got a baby.
Yeah.
A sweet little one.
This font, for whatever reason, you see how it's really jagged around the edges?
Yeah.
It just wasn't a very well-made font. And so what fixed it is just making it crisp. So if you have a font that isn't great, but you want to keep it because you like the structure of it, you can do that. So anyway, so I think that what this needs is some more color. I really love using color in the title to emphasize certain words. So maybe for this, we go as bold as like something that relates to this color. So when I want something that's in the same family, I grab a color and then I just pick one, because these all have the same sort of ingredients, but there's just more of some things than others. At least that's what I think is accurate. And then maybe a drop shadow, I don't know. That might be too much, but we'll see how this goes. And then, let's see. I think that this needs to be bigger. Oops. And I think that right now what would be really useful is if this was on another layer, because then I can move him down a little bit and give myself more room for the title. But because I don't have that ability, I'm just going to move everything down. And then just add some more blue up top. Because we want the turkey. The way that this is drawn is done really well, because he really has a lot of emotion, even without the tears. Oops, I didn't move the tears. What's the matter with me?
The tears are floating in space.
Yeah, well, I like the tears. I
love the tears. That's a great detail.
So I'm going to extend that. I need to do it the hard way.
This is probably a good example to talk about, the emotional impact of the cover too. And there's even a cover this week. I'm trying to remember whose it was, where there was it was, I forget whose cover. It was about the monsters, scary monsters. The question is, do you make the kids look brave or do you make the kids look scared? And I think it's a good question, and there's not necessarily a single answer to it, and there were some different opinions in there. But I think that's where what you're looking for is that emotional impact of the illustration, and that's where the character, there's such an importance to your main character on the cover and the emotional reaction that character creates for your reader. And immediately, you see this turkey and you're like, oh, what's wrong? And there's a sympathy that immediately happens with the turkey, and you want to figure out what's wrong. So
really great point to bring up. I completely agree with you. So what I was doing when I added the tears was just really trying to emphasize that.
Yep.
I actually, with that monster book that you're talking about, I had the same. I really could relate to that because I had the same issue with my book.
Oh yes, yep.
Because I wasn't sure if he should be scared on the cover or if he should be brave. I went with brave because I wanted parents to know that the buyer, I should say, that there was a happy ending to that story, because you know, you wanted to sell, you wanted to sell. So I was kind of afraid to go with an afraid vibe or afraid look to him. So anyway, so if I move this down, I can enlarge the whole thing. Although I may not want to enlarge the thankful part. I think that's good enough. Anyway, I feel like this is maybe even getting boring because it's a lot of this just tedious work here. So before I go any further with the text, I do this backwards, I think, because I often will add to the illustration to make it have movement. This is very static to me, and I don't love static illustration. So, you know, you really want the reader to, this is not the right one. You want the buyer to get an emotional reaction from the cover, but you also, you know, part of that is coming from the movement of the title, or of the cover, I should say. And so I find myself adding movement a lot, but not only to the cover, to the interior stuff when I'm doing the interior work. And this usually takes me a lot of tries before I get it right, and that's not even. See, I'm just, but I wanted to go towards the, see, my vision is in my head, and I'm going to have that leaf blowing in the wind swirl, and it's going to wrap around either him or the title somehow. And so I'll get it eventually, but it usually takes me some tries, because this is part of my, this is part of the cover process, at least for me, where I'm trying to make sure it all like flows together. And maybe it doesn't need to be one. Okay, let's see what this looks like.
I love that. That's a great effect.
Oh, you hear my kids. They're not behaving.
Uh-oh.
Time to make them pick out a stick from the backyard. Just kidding. I know you guys don't know me. I'm totally kidding. I don't beat my kids. At least I don't tell people about it. I told them that if they weren't perfectly quiet, though, they were going to go to bed, and they don't want to do that. It's a summer now, and they get to stay up a little later.
You're lucky my kids have one day of school left. So, almost done.
I really like the schedule and the routine of having them in school. It's so much nicer to be able to say, sorry, it's a school night, you gotta go to bed. Instead, it's like, well, Mom, we don't have school tomorrow. Can't we have a summer party in the basement with a lot of blankets that you're gonna have to wash tomorrow? I'm just kidding. Okay, so this ended up kind of looking like it was all flowing together, so I made it look like it was more on purpose. And then I reduced the opacity here so it's not so in your face. And then I'm going to grab my my selection from the turkey. That moved because he moved. And then I can just hide part of this so that it's not over him. Now it's behind him. And I'm not sure that I want it to be totally behind him, but for now it's going to be like that. Okay. And so now I'm going to move this up above that. And if this were all on separate layers, I would totally grab different leaves from down here so they weren't all the same. But for the sake of trying to hurry and not waste too much of anybody's time, I'm just gonna throw a few in here and make them a little bit different. the settings for Zoom keep getting in the way. Anyway, okay, so now we've got a little bit more orange in here on the sides, and I think I'll probably it's so quiet. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Let's see. Where would you add color, Clay? Would you add color here? To the thankful? Or I mean, to Thanksgiving. Let me see what a drop shadow looks like here.
This already looks so much better than it did when it, you know, when you started. It's incredible what you guys are doing in the amount of time that you're doing it. Huge difference, huge.
Thanks for the ego boost here, or for the comment.
Well,
Oh, we're quiet because we're just entranced by this. It's not boring at all. It's like amazing. The light in the darkness, you know, the little hand that reaches down, let me fix your book.
yeah, right. Well, you know, and that's, to me, that's what's so fun about design, actually, is it's so satisfying to just make a few changes and you can transform you know, an entire cover relatively easily, and it's just a lot of fun.
Well, I can tell you right now, I don't like that.
And that's also part of the process.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna, this is one of those things where I would have to come back and maybe it needs to be a different font. I usually like to mix at least one or two fonts on the cover. Something else to think to consider when you're doing the cover is what you're doing on the interior. A lot of times with the interior, I'll use the main font on the cover as a font to emphasize certain parts of the interior. Usually with interior text, I do two fonts, and I use like a plain font, and then I use a font like this that has a little bit more personality to emphasize different words. I really don't like this drop shadow here. Don't really know what I would like better though. What do you think, Clay?
Yeah, the drop shadow's a little thick. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but when it was thinner, it just didn't. It didn't.
Right. No, it needed something, but I'm not sure what to suggest.
Let's see.
You could probably go about bringing out some of the browns. It might need to be a darker brown, but like grab a brown
Instead of black, yeah.
instead of black from his from the turkey's feathers, and even if you needed a darker shade of it, you could. And again, that's something that Kitty, you demonstrated that earlier. But yeah, I'm almost any time I'm selecting colors for a font, it's pulling those colors from the illustration. And that,
Oh yeah, for sure.
That gives you a
cohesive.
Yeah, really.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is other than having everything on a different layer, which that's brilliant. I didn't think about that. Is there any other suggestions you would have to an illustrator when they're putting the stuff together for you? Like, you know, for a designer, because this is like magic to me. The art, I can draw that in a heartbeat, but this stuff is the stuff that when I see you do it, it's like, whoa, I never even thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any other suggestion other than everything being on a layer or, you know,
I think
that you would recommend?
I think that what Clay had brought up earlier about there just being words that you emphasize is really the key. And I have them on different layers only so that I'm able to emphasize different words and be more playful with the placement. I don't think I answered your question entirely, but sorry, I don't do very good at talking and working.
No,
I also can't talk and walk. Like,
well, a couple things come to mind. You know, one of them is, and again, in the cover critique group, we've encountered this more than once on several occasions, where there'll be a strong illustration, but it won't have a good spot for the text. And so I think that's one of the things. I know I was um, helping Akili with her. I think it was an interior page as she was working on her book a while back. Where there wasn't good spot for the text, and so that to me is one of the key things when you're working with an illustrator, or if you are an illustrator, making sure that you are accommodating, know how much text is going to be on the page, at least approximately. It doesn't have to be perfect, but make room for that text, and especially on the cover, make room for the title, so that you have enough negative space to fit in whatever text you're going to place, that the illustration isn't filling the entire space. And the other two things, along with layering, which is incredibly helpful, as you can see. The other thing is making sure to have your illustrations at the proper size with trim and bleed, so that it fills the entire space.
My
What's
God.
that, Katie?
That's huge. Please
Oh,
say it louder. Say it louder.
Yeah, well, and that was one of the things when I was working on. I've posted about Nicholas Smith's book, the Giants and the Smalls, and um, his illustrator had not done layers, and the dimensions were off a little bit, and so there was only so much I could do, and his illustrations are very detailed, so I couldn't really fudge it with Photoshop the way I might in certain cases, and so I really had to work around what he had, and that wasn't really easy to do. And so, yeah, getting good dimensions. And then if, one of the things that can be helpful as a designer, sometimes you want to zoom in a little bit. And so making sure that you've got enough, what's the word? Resolution for your images. In order to print, you really should have 300 DPI. So that's 300 pixels per inch. And so if you have a 300 pixel per inch image and you zoom in, all of a sudden you're stretching more pixels, you're stretching the same number of pixels over more inches, which reduces your DPI, and your images will get fuzzy. So actually having a little bit extra resolution is helpful from a design perspective, because then, yeah, we can, as a designer, we can manipulate those images and zoom in maybe a little bit, and still have enough resolution that they'll print clearly and crisply.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, what Photoshop does when you stretch it is it guesses the pixels and where you want them. And so a lot of times it's just there's a significant difference. And unfortunately, I run into the situation a lot when I'm doing interior files, that an illustrator will take a picture from one page and then drag it into a new page so they don't have to redraw it. And then they'll make it bigger on that page because they need it bigger for that spread. And then they draw everything else. And so you can see the contrast between the picture that they drug in and then the pictures that they had to draw. So that's something to look for also when you're actually hiring an illustrator, is to make sure they're not going to take the easy route that way and cause you some problems there.
So I'm sorry, can I ask you, because I'm an author illustrator. So if I do watercolor or, traditional style, and I usually do a whole painting, but it would be better for me then to scan it in and break it apart? Or does that matter if I do like the character first?
No, I'm talking, I don't know how to show you this without calling out somebody. Hang on. I'm going to show you on my book. So I have a book that's being printed. Let's see. Where do oh, I'm not a client. Duh. I have it organized and then I forget where I put stuff still. Interior. So like with this right here, this is this illustration right here is one that I pulled in from another page. So if I were to, you can see here, it's it's crisp. It's pretty crisp here. So if I were to enlarge it, it's going to lose a lot of that resolution that makes it look good. And so when you enlarge something more than 5%, you can see it changes pretty drastically. My computer's just being really slow. In terms of the quality of the, let me see if I can get the other one next to it. Sorry, this is a really big file. Can you see the difference? This is really fuzzy and this is really crisp. So a lot of times, like with the cover art, what happens is they will send me an illustration for the cover, but they create the illustration to the same size as the interior, and the cover file almost always needs to be at least an inch bigger all the way around. So I would tell you, if you're creating an 8.5 by 8.5 book, your cover art should at least be 9.5 by 9.5. It's even safer to go up to 10 and have the focal point of the art be the center that matches your book cover in the center. So if I'm creating, let's see if I can show you real quick. If I'm creating let's say this is my 8-inch, oh, I have it on a path. Jeez, I swear I know what I'm doing. Okay. If let's call it, this is my 8.5 book, 8.5 square book. And this is the cover art for that, okay? So let's say this is a 10-inch square and my book is an 8.5-inch book. I'm going to make sure that the artwork, damn it. What did I do wrong? I hate shapes. I almost never use shapes. Sorry. Okay. So the 8.5-inch, why did it do that? Why does it add, I hate when I got this on the wrong setting somehow. I'm sorry. You know what I'm trying to say? The artwork should be right here in the center, because all of this extra here is what's folded around the book's edge. So yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, I guess what I was asking is, if I'm doing a painting, let's say a person riding on a horse through a field and there's a barn, and should I scan each piece separately so that the designer can move them around? Or will that look weird, like you put stickers on a background? Because I've only worked in whole scenes, and I'm trying to figure.
So with your type of art, it's much less flexible.
Okay.
I would say just to give it to them as it is, and you just need to make sure that as an artist, you're leaving enough room and really pre-planning where your text is going to go. Just even if you don't know, the fonts, the exact placement, like that this area is for the title.
Okay.
And to give ample space for that. When I was doing Cindy's cover, I intentionally, I'm sorry that I completely missed your question before and started talking in circles for no reason. But when I was doing Cindy's cover, I left a spot on purpose right under, here, this is just, so right under the umbrella. I knew that I wanted the girl to be sort of covering the title with her umbrella. And so I designed it this way. I drew the artwork to fit around the title, but this I did first. So that's, as an artist, that's what you should be thinking about, is where are you going to put the title so that you can make sure that it fits in that spot. Now, as far as this cover goes, I think that I would just need to, I need to look at it in the morning and see if I still like it. But I think I would want to add, maybe something to the background to sort of balance out this empty space here, just because there's something here and I'm really weird with that stuff. And I don't know if this is gonna look good or not, but I just might, yeah, I don't like that. I don't know. it needs something else, but I don't know what it is at this very moment. Do you have any ideas?
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if I answered your question in full, but I realized that
Yeah,
I
you did.
a lot of time for Clay. It's his turn, and I'm being long-winded with my talking.
That's okay. I'm working on stuff in the background over here. So there we go.
All right. Well, what do you think? Would you add anything or change anything to this? I know it needs something else, especially if the title's not done. But
Yeah.
as you guys can see, it's a labor of love here, and it really takes a lot of finessing to get everything to fit properly together. But I think that one thing that might help is to enlarge some of these letters here so that they kind of fill this space here. Because I really like it when things kind of fit like they're in a nook. So I might just change. I said I was going to stop talking, and I'm still talking today. If you're ready to jump in, feel free, because this is not going to get done tonight, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, there's still, and this is again where the kind of the gut sense comes in. It doesn't feel quite done yet. It's obviously there's a ton of progress, but yeah, I would continue tweaking this and come back to it. I don't have any brilliant suggestions. I think there's there's more color needed. I think toward the top. There's plenty of color in the bottom.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I just don't. I gotta. When I get to this point, I have to walk away, and usually in the morning when I come back, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it needed. But it's just like kind of do it in one sitting. Are you that way too? I just feel like I'm broken.
Oh, I'm always that way, yeah. And yeah, because you run. Part of it is you run out of creative energy, and you're just like, I don't have any other ideas at the moment, and so I think it's kind of how it is. So
I think that also this needs another font. It needs a second font somewhere. Anyway, and then this guy. So is the author on here? I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name. Please forgive me.
No worries. It's Onolapo.
That's beautiful. I'm not even going to try to say it though, because I'm going to.
That's all right.
Your name is beautiful. So what do you think so far? Is this...
Oh my! I've been speechless. I've been like, whoa! It's so great. I didn't know what to expect. Well, I knew it was going to be good. It was you, but man, this is looking so good.
But I just wanted to know if you were liking the direction, because I think that I like this curvature. I like the movement with the wind and the tears.
Yes, I love the wind. I love the wind. Yeah.
I think this just needs some more work. But I don't think that it's going to get done tonight. It's going to have to look. I'm going to have to look at it another time. But
it looks awesome so far. It looks so good so far.
I'll tell you what. We'll try to wrap up in the next few minutes. I've got one more cover I can show you guys.
Yeah, I'm done.
If you're good with that, Katie.
Yep, I will stop sharing, and then I don't know if you have time afterward to do some Q&A, or if you want to do it while we're talking or while you're talking.
Yeah, let me. I'll show you this one other one that I'd prepared. And this one's from Missy. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm excited about this one.
So let me share screen. So I think most of you probably saw it. Missy, you posted this out in the group with a couple different options to it. And, you were debating about title and that kind of thing. Did you have any thoughts on where you landed with title?
I like the title because of the story in the book, but I knew that I'm not, no matter what I try with the fonts and everything, I know that it needs, the warping, the treatments. I don't know what they are.
Right.
So I understand that I don't know. And no matter what I do with it, it's not going to be me. So I understood that I needed help. And that's, but I was just trying to get the background artwork somewhere where it needed to be. But I'm just ready to just throw it all at you guys and say, here, take my files and fix it.
Well, let me. I won't show you the whole process of this one, but I did do a little workup in the background. One of the things that struck me is, like, if you're looking at just the right half, just the cover half, the left half with the sun, or with the moon, is the back of your book. But if someone's just looking at the right half, two things strike me. First of all, I'm not sure whether I'm looking at like a microscopic cell or something like that in the body, or if I'm looking at a comet in outer space. I think that was one of the things that confused me. It wasn't clearly a comet; doesn't have as much of a trail behind it as I might expect from a comet. And I also, the journey to Earth, there's no representation of Earth anywhere here on the cover. So those were, at least in terms of the illustration, those are some of the things that jumped out at me. So you sent us some of your illustrations, some of your interior artwork, which I loved. And so this is what I started messing with here. Is really bringing in. You had one of this with the full trail behind the comet, and being able to wrap that around the back of the book, I think would be a lot of fun. We could, you could definitely put the moon on the back here, and a blurb of text down in this area. Now I switched. You were debating between which is your title versus subtitle. Is it a Comet Surprise or Journey to Earth? To me, Journey to Earth was, I felt like that was a little stronger. I mean, I think you could probably go either way. Maybe poll the group and see what you have there. But, and then, just really, you also had the Earth in one of the corners of your illustrations, and so I grabbed that as well. And so all of a sudden, this is representing the title. This is the comet's journey to Earth, and it gives, I think, a stronger idea of what is going to happen in the story.
I like it. I like the journey. I'll switch it. I'll switch title and subtitle. Done.
All right. Cool.
Done.
So, and then, again, there's not I haven't done a whole lot with doing some curvature or arcing with the text, but at least what I wanted to do is get one strong font. And that's kind of why I like the Journey to Earth, is that Earth can be like this big, thick, bold font. And you could probably do some more treatment to this. Again, I'm just was in the first stages of this, but then partner that with a more of a hand-drawn font. They work pretty well together, even though they're very different. Fonts are they're kind of like colors. You either want to pick fonts that are a match, or you want to pick ones that contrast. And so, and that in this case, you have contrasting fonts. One that's very geometric and bold, and one that is more hand drawn and has a lot of curvature to it. So, so anyway, that's and again, I didn't spend a ton of time looking through all those fonts and getting the exact right choices for this, but I think this is at least gives some direction to what you could do with this. And then reusing the font, one of the things you mentioned, Katie, as well. Usually I have 2 or 3 fonts for any given project, maybe 1 or 2 for the title, another one for the inside, but then I try not to use additional fonts. The goal really being to reuse those throughout the book, so you get a consistency of design throughout, even in the body text versus the cover, etc. And so when you have something that you can do with that, for something like a subtitle like this is an all caps font. I might suggest one that doesn't have all caps, and again, for readability purposes, that can be important. Is all caps are a little bit harder for young kids to read, since they're not used to that as much. But anyway, but I think in terms of composition, this gets a little bit more in the direction of communicating more about your story and kind of foregrounding your comic character. And I might move this around a little bit.
Yeah,
That's good.
we could get some of the green aurora into the top too if the comet is down there.
Yes.
And I have a
Right.
couple of friends that'll be so excited to have Earth back showing up again. You know,
Right,
they're like,
right.
"Can I get the Earth?" I'm like, "I don't know how to make it work."
Yeah, right.
I should have probably sent you the screenshot of my shutterfly practice because I did want to
Mm-hmm.
practice and see how I wanted the interior to look.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do that. I was just surprised. They were like, "Oh, we might have time for your cover." I'm like, "What?" So
We did.
I did do some work
Definitely.
with that.
I'd like to see that. That'd be great.
Okay, yeah, I'll send it. But I'm
Yeah.
digging all this. It's like no, I'm getting down to the last bit. I've been struggling with this book and these illustrations and what it needs to teach and still be
Yep.
fun. So
Right. And yeah, I think that's where there's some simplicity too, rather than, I mean, you could probably add some more color. There's not a lot of color here. You've got a lot of color in the aurora around the comet, and maybe you could sprinkle a little bit of that in. Perhaps instead of changing the color of each letter like you do here, maybe Katie, the way you did with kind of just some sparkles on some of your
It
lettering.
needs more glitter.
Yeah, you could basically do that and apply that over the word surprise or something like that. So there's ways to where you could echo those colors down in here. So that could be
I
fun.
really like how the J and the E are stacked. Like you left aligned them. I like that.
Oh yeah, right. And this again, you're getting the momentum is going from top left to bottom right, and that really does work a lot, and is almost always is an improvement if you can adjust your composition to flow in that direction. And like you said, with more of a Z where you're reading across the top, so you're reading the title, then you're zooming down, you're seeing the comet and following the comet's trail, basically right into the book. So
yeah, when I enlarged the comet, some people were saying he looks like a fish. And I'm like, that's
yeah,
why
I
I
can see
took away
that.
a lot of the trail. I'm like, well,
Uh-huh.
it's because he's got that trail attached. And so I guess I didn't go back to using this portion of the spread number
Yeah.
12, I think it is, or 11.
Yeah.
I mean, that's spread
11,
11.
I think it was. Yep.
But I would want to put the Northern Lights back, the green up to the
Mhm.
top. I really like that up there, and I think that'll add nice color. I'm so
Yeah.
over this thing here. I don't want to see that again. I worked
That's
so
hilarious.
hard trying to figure it out. So maybe I need
Yep.
to make the comet the big focal point. But yeah, no, I love going back to that and getting. It's okay to make the comet smaller.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Right.
I know it
Yep.
doesn't align perfectly, Clay, but what if you were to put the comet between the journey and Earth layers so that it would
Mm-hmm.
put it in front of the journey?
So like it's up in here and bring the Earth down.
If you're able to do that where it shows, but you may have to add a few stars or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you might be able to do something like that.
I don't know. It's not the right angle. Sorry. See, it was
Yeah,
one
and
of
you have to layer it over. So I
yeah.
won't bother with.
Yeah, I looked at it in my head, but it didn't really translate.
And it might work. It just I wouldn't be able to get it within a minute or so here. So.
I know.
But all right. Well, it is 9:02. Are there any questions or comments that we can? You guys have been chatting in the chat window, and I haven't.
We can go through that if you want, Clay.
Yeah, we can
There's a lot
pick
of
through that.
comments in here. Does anybody have any questions? Actually, somebody had asked early on, I don't know if they're still in here, about fonts. Where do we get free fonts? And I would tell you, I don't know how Clay feels about this, but anything free, or anything good, I should say, is worth investing in. I spend a lot of money on my fonts, and yes, there are free fonts out there. I don't use them often. Do you, Clay? I don't know.
I don't usually use free, but the nice thing about most fonts, I mean, there are expensive fonts, but those are usually, if you're publishing a magazine and you need a perfectly tuned serif font for your body text, then you're purchasing a several $100 font for something like that. But for a lot of these fonts, you can usually get them for, $5, $20, something like that. Always have to check the licensing, make sure they're clearing you for commercial use in a book. But yeah, I mean, it is definitely worth investing. And there are, I think I've posted in the cover critique group, there's at least 3 different designers that I really tend to pull from. Kimberly Guesswine, as I mentioned earlier, Hello Literacy, I'm forgetting her name, Jen Jones, is that her name?
I don't know.
And
I use that too. Creative Market.
yeah, helloliteracy.com. She has a whole batch of, I forget, like 200 fonts, and they're free to download, free to install on your system and use for personal use. It's out on Teachers Pay Teachers, and but then the fonts themselves, you can license them. One font is just $5, or you can get licensed for the entire set of fonts for $75 or something like that. And she's just got a whole selection that are really fun to use and well made. So I use those. There's another, forgetting his name now. His initials are DK, and a lot of his fonts. I can pull it up. So these hello ones, I mean, all the ones that start with hello are Jen Jones fonts, but then these DK fonts are very strong as well. And you can see a lot of hand-drawn personality, but very, very readable still. And that's what I'm really looking for a lot of the time when I'm doing any sort of kids books. This DK Haramau, right? Very clean, very easy to read, good letter forms. Even the A, it's the single level A instead of the double level, double story A. So very good for kids for the most part, and but it still has a lot of personality. So anyway, that one I left that link out on the in that post that I made a while back, and so those are 3 great sources. I will often go to the free sites to start searching if I'm looking for something new and see what I can find there. A lot of times what you find on the free sites is you'll get a trial version of a font, and that is not licensed for commercial use, but you can download it, you can try it out, see if it works. And then if you decide you do want to use it in your book site and purchase a license. But usually that's not too expensive.
By the way, on Teachers Pay Teacher, you can download all of the KG fonts, which I think was like 300, maybe 320.
Yeah,
and
she's
then you
got a lot.
can use them for $5 for commercial use, and that qualifies for printing your book. But it also qualifies because it's a kid's book. As long as the font is embedded in your file, you don't have to pay for an EPUB version, as far as I understand. The only time you need an EPUB version is when it's like a flowable format. So like if you're reading like a chapter book on your phone and you can move your phone and it corrects the text, that's a flowable format. With picture books, they're embedded into the artwork. So that doesn't count as an EPUB font use.
Yep.
Did you mention Creative Market?
I did not, but yes, that's a good,
that's
good
another
option.
really good resource. And sorry, I wanted to mention this too. I absolutely agree with you, Mary Pat. You had messaged me privately, but I usually try to avoid the A's that don't look like the double, what do they call them? The double layer A's. I try to avoid those typically.
Two-story or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the 2-story A's, exactly. I try to avoid those with kids' books. I really do. Sometimes if the author doesn't really care that much, doesn't think it's a big deal, sometimes I'll take that opportunity to find a font that doesn't have that, or if it's a font that I really, really love, but there's a double layer A like that, I might swap in an A from another font. It's really really laborious to do that, but you can find a similar font that has that A if you like the rest of the font. There's no reason why you can't do that. No one would ever know.
That's awesome. Teachers will appreciate that, because it's great when kids are learning to read, to recognize the font as what they're writing. and
Yeah.
not think it's a new letter. So that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, every book I've done with the interior, I always have those fonts. Some with the regular A. Sometimes with the cover, you know, there's just no way around it. And I didn't actually pay close attention to the font that I was using. But I did know Canterbury had that A because I chose not to use it on another book for that exact reason. But it works as all caps perfectly. And I went back and forth between lowercase and caps for that one cover, the first one I worked on. And I honestly, I was distracted. I had friends in town and they left like 5 minutes before this started. So just busy. You also asked, why is the illustrator's name smaller if it's a picture book? Well, I don't know. It's like, that's like the way that I've always seen it. Isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
No, and like on the most published books, they're not, because like they're getting the same royalties, the same pay, because they're both telling half the story. Now, if it's a storybook and you're just illustrating the story, you're not adding anything to it, then that's different. That's often can be for hire. But I was just curious about that's what I see more on the indie books as I've started self-publishing than on published books. So I was just curious about that, if and maybe it's because authors are usually hiring illustrators.
Yeah, I think
Than the other way around.
When I did Cindy's book, it was a work for hire situation. Her book is the only one that I've done other than my own. So as far as an illustrator goes, so I I'm not really sure what the norm is, but for her and I, it was a work for hire situation where she paid me to illustrate her book, and she owned all the rights. So, it's her book. She's not paying me royalties on it. She doesn't have to ask permission to use the characters. She owns the characters, all of everything. So, and
that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it differs in that way from a traditionally published book, but it just, for me, it felt right. Like my job is done when the book is done. She came up with the story. The whole concept came to fruition because it was her book. And she's carrying that on way past the illustration. She has to worry about selling it. Her face is, the one that people associate with the book. And so I don't know. Even as an illustrator, it was no big deal for me to have her name larger. She worked her butt off for that book, I know. I mean, I know all authors do. So anyway.
Well, that's probably it, because it's as far as being independently published versus traditionally where the publishing house is doing all that work. So
yeah,
I was just curious if that was common.
So yeah. Becky had asked.
I would. Oh, go ahead.
Hello.
Sorry, my internet connection is dropping. I was gonna throw a thought in there.
Please.
Yeah, with regards to just the names, I think I've seen it both ways. I do. Well, a couple things. One of the things that I tend to see on professional books is not using things like, which you mentioned earlier, written by, illustrated by, and please don't use colons. That's one of my pet peeves from a design perspective. Written by, colon, and a name. But I think really. I guess in terms of the author-illustrator relationship, I have the same situation with my illustrator, Natalie Merheb, that did This I Know. It was a work for hire. She still owns the copyrights to the illustrations, but yeah, there's no royalty arrangement or anything like that. So it's, kind of a one and done purchase sort of thing. But one of the things that I think I wanted to do is really craft kind of a working collaboration with her, because we're hoping to do a couple more books, follow-up sequel books in the future. And so for me, I'm happy to put her name on the cover as big as my name. And, I don't think there's rules one way or the other, but just as an alternate perspective for me, I think there's value in just saying, what, we worked on this book together. We're both proud of it. And so even though, yeah, I've got a lot more invested in it financially and time-wise and all that sort of thing, but I think there's value in just sharing that.
Well, if you heard that, Cindy, on your next book, I'm going to be the same as you.
There you go. In fact,
I'm kidding.
Put Katie's name above on the next one, right?
I have to
But
tell you,
anyway,
I just, yeah, I just completely, I have a soft spot for Cindy. So I was so, I don't know. I don't want her to, I brought up your book, but it was not a bad thing. Like everything's good. I love you. Okay. So there's other questions here. Becky asked if I added the emphasis on magical, like there was some highlights to make it look, the words look like bubbles. I actually drew that on, which you know, that's not hard. Anybody can do that with a mouse. Let's see, what are we doing? When choosing downloading fonts, where do you like, oh, here we go. We already did that. I love all the comments. I totally missed these when I felt like I was.
I know, I did too. John, you had asked, that was a question, but do writers sometimes try and design the cover themselves? They do. And if you go out in some of those groups, especially the non-children's groups like Aspiring Authors United or whatever that one group is called, I see people all the time, writers that are designing the cover themselves. 99% of the time it's a bad idea. And so, I think that's where, I don't know how common it is to hire a cover designer. You guys can maybe speak to that. I think it's a wise idea. If you don't have design skill, I think it's a really wise idea to hire a cover designer. Just like I can't draw, so me trying to illustrate is a bad idea, so I hire an illustrator. And so I think that's where design needs to be considered at the same level of importance as editing, illustration, writing, design. Those four kind of have to go hand in hand to make a good book. And so if you have skill, great, do it. If you don't have skill, then I would suggest hire it out to get the best result. Katie, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I agree. I think that I actually, in my case, I started off as a designer, and to take my graphic design skills to the next level, I bought a digital tablet, and then I thought, oh, cool, I can actually draw with this thing, and I bought this tablet October 2019, and I met Cindy a month or two later, and by February I was under contract for my first book illustration. So it all came to be really quickly, but that's backwards version of this is most illustrators don't have the graphic design experience. I kind of came about it and in a different way. So I would say don't let your illustrator format your book unless they are actually a graphic designer. It's not the same thing. And usually the illustrators that want to do it are the authors, and I'm afraid to say this without sounding like a total jerk, but the books just aren't selling, and then it's like backtracking and having to figure out why your book's not selling and what you can do that will change things, and it's almost always the cover if your books aren't selling. So I would say hire a graphic designer to do it. But if you want to take a stab at it and see kind of just thoughts around some ideas, on the screen, Canva's a good place to play. But I would definitely post it in the group to get some feedback before you go to print on it. Even if it's POD, it's a pain in the butt to have different versions out in the world. And Becky said, where did you say you can find the DK fonts?
I'm posting that right now.
Oh.
There you go.
Does anybody else have questions? Did I interrupt you, Clay? I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying that Hanoded Fonts, Hanoded Fonts.com. David Kirchhoff is the designer's name. So.
Hey, Caitlin Clements, you sent me a message privately, and I don't mean to call you out, but I'm not sure which last cover you're talking about. Can you let me know?
Hi. Yeah, sorry. I just saw there was another tab open on your computer. I was just wondering if we could touch on that.
Oh, I see. I didn't actually get to this one. Yeah, let me share. Let me share my screen. This one I had just planned on talking about. I didn't actually get a chance to to play with it at all. Can everybody see? This was a cover that was sent to me like this afternoon. So I didn't even get a chance to really look at it. I actually opened it up for the first time right before the meeting. I find this text really difficult to read. Do you agree, Clay? Can you see it? I think we might have lost Clay again. What I would do differently with this cover is to really make this wind, I would make the wind a little bit more opaque, or I would increase the opacity on the wind, or decrease the opacity on the wind so it's not so in your face. I would maybe move some leaves around, and I would put the cover or the text over top of it, and maybe twirl the wind around the text. That's where I would start with this, because it's kind of too bold of a wind. It doesn't really match the illustration style, and the text is quite hard to read. We actually had planned on going through. Clay, are you still there? I don't know.
Yes, I am. Sorry, I had to go. I had to go make sure my kids were obeying.
Do you want to go through? We had talked about possibly. Do you have time to go through the other covers that were submitted and talk about them, or do you want to wrap that?
We could.
Save that.
I probably need to wrap up by 9:30 here, but I probably have a few more minutes. So.
Okay. Oh, it's 10.
9:30 my time, 10:30 your time.
Is it possible for you to have a look at mine?
I don't know who was.
Who was that?
Sorry, it's Christina Summers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see. Did you send it to us?
I did. I only sent you, I think it was just a JPEG at first because I hadn't received the PSD files yet, the Photoshop files. But I did send a copy of it. It probably would have came from like Allie Loves Pajama.
Oh, I remember the book. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong.
And I guess while you're looking for it, can I just ask, so my husband's my illustrator, and instead of having our names separate on the cover, the idea was to have our names together. So it would say Christina and Paul Summers as a husband-wife, collaborator.
Okay.
What do you think of that idea?
So I mean, I think that the way that your cover's balanced, it would be fine to have one name here, one name here, so that it's symmetrical. Their illustration is so symmetrical that your text almost needs to follow suit. So what I would say with your title is it needs to fit nicely in this nook here. So this pajamas doesn't really fit well here.
Okay.
And I don't know how to do that without moving these down a little bit, because I think that that's what's maybe holding this up. Do you have a PSD for it?
I do. Just one second.
If you email it to me, I'll open it up and try to see what that looks like. But with the background does not match the style of your illustration. This looks like a colored pencil or crayon or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That texture, and I think you need to mimic that texture on the back, because it looks like it doesn't belong. And it's okay even just to have, I don't know, like a solid color with a gradient. But I would say you should probably have some sort of a background, even if it's. Do you agree with me here, Clay?
I do. My biggest thing here would be, some sort of floor. Actually, yeah. I think it's missing context. So actually putting a floor underneath the pile of pajamas, and maybe even a wall in the background. It doesn't have to be much, but I think it feels more warm and homey. If she feels like she's in her bedroom as opposed to kind of floating in this
right now. Or another
over this gradient.
Still have like you should still have a horizon line. I think that's what it's missing. At least a horizon.
That's part of it, yeah.
With some sort of something in the background. It can be, I don't know, it can even be more clothes that are in the background but faded, so that they're not the focal point. You want the focal point to be here, right?
Okay.
But you can even, what I would do if I were messing with your cover is I would take this pile of clothing and I would duplicate it and I would flip it so it doesn't look the same.
Mhm.
And I would put it behind her and reduce the opacity so that it just looks like it's in the distance more.
So you have another pile
Do the same thing
here.
over here. Yeah, I would do the same thing over
Yeah.
here. And I would move this all down so that it's fitting nicely here so that you're not floating in the middle of the air.
Okay.
Because when you do something like this without even with a floor, you really need shadows to make it look like it's grounded.
Right. Yeah.
And then you could, I mean, I like that her clothes, I like that she's throwing clothes. It's very obvious what she's doing. But the way that this is situated, you really need that cover title, the title to match that shape because you don't have much room here. And you might have more room once you take all of this and move it down. So that this.
I think that might be an opportunity. Go ahead.
Sorry. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say that might be an opportunity to unsymmetrify the cover a little bit too, where perhaps you don't have clothes on one side, maybe it's just one shirt on one side. I would love to see the title down a little bit further, a little closer to her head, perhaps, and then maybe pajamas hanging off of the S on the end or something like that. So you could create some.
J. I was envisioning a sock off of the J.
Yeah, or hooked on the J. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I do like the fact this is good. You got some overlap here, which is nice. But yeah, some more interaction and just have fun with it, play with it. I think that could be a lot of fun.
But with the symmetry, I think you need it to be balanced with your names. And so in that case, with your original question, I would do separate names. If you throw off the symmetry somehow, and maybe put her. Have you ever heard of the rule of thirds?
No.
So with photography, or any art, there's like a rule of thirds where right now, yeah, thank you, Clay.
There you go.
You want your whatever it is, your person. Sorry.
Character.
My brain doesn't work right now. I don't know. You want it to be on the 1/3 of the page, so that way you have room. It's just it's a photography composition thing. Let me just show you, because my brain is not completing thoughts. Just to give you an idea of what this looks like, and it's just a matter of it's where the focal point falls within 1/3 of the frame. And so this is a really good way to make your illustration look more professional, and is to move her over to maybe this side, okay? Because you don't want her to be on this side because that would represent the back of the book subconsciously. So you want her on the left side and maybe throwing clothes this way. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So then if you did that, we'll go back to here. If you put her over here and had her clothes like being thrown over here, like maybe have this one, you can take this, I would mirror image it, put it over here, throw it up, and then your title could fit, somewhere over here. Does that make sense? What do you think, Clay? Is that a good suggestion?
I think it's worth trying. Yeah. Which would remove the symmetry of the cover. So.
So I do like the idea about what you were saying about adding a floor or some type of background, because that is the case throughout the book where she's in her room and you can actually see the floorboards and the background and stuff. So I think that's a great idea to add some type of context to that pile of clothes.
Yeah.
And then so I guess what I'm saying is with the idea of the husband and wife as collaborators, you would still have the names separate?
I might consider them like straight across down here. You need more room. You don't have enough room there at the moment, but you could potentially do that across the bottom.
Well,
I don't know.
If she's gonna move this over here, that might be weird if it's centered. You just have to feel like the credit thing.
Yeah.
Really, for me, is like, where does it fit that looks good after the fact? Because the title and the illustration really need to work together. I think that similar to how I did the oodles thing, I think that your title would work really well right here. If you moved her over, had her head here-ish, and then you were throwing clothes over, and you had the pile of clothes extend out this way more, you fit
Right.
the title here.
Okay. Or what if we were to like cut out, you know, that the two items of pajamas that she has thrown in the air on the left-hand side. What if we were to cut that and move it so that it's a little bit, it's up higher in the left corner so it doesn't look so symmetrical
there.
or like, yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I
And then have the title kind of arched over the left in between that gap then. Would that work?
possibly. I mean, I think either way, I mean, she's fine in the center. That works really well for some covers. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I think it's this shape that you really, that's, I mean, it makes it so that you're forced to fit that a title in here. And
Right.
this being the focal point, or the word that you really want to emphasize, it's not going to fit nicely in here unless you make it too small. So I would lower down and maybe take these two things and just either take them down a little bit so that you have more of a subtle curve, you know, visually, and just see how that works. If you don't want to move everything around, just see how that works. I don't love this font, if I'm being honest. I don't think it matches at all.
Yeah. This is again where, you know, you've got pencil drawing, colored pencil, you know, so something that looks more hand drawn is going to work better because it's going to match with that a little better.
Okay.
So I think looking at some of the fonts that Katie was showing earlier, something similar to that is going to complement your illustration style a little bit more.
Okay. And as for the, like what you were saying before, Clay, about the like hierarchy, pajamas would be the word that I would still emphasize though, right?
Absolutely. Okay. Yep. That's your big word.
Even, I mean, I know this is so cliche, but you could use a heart instead of
a heart.
I don't know. Just to put some color into the title. I would try that. I would have something hanging. I would have like clothing hanging off of some of the letters, not just the J, because you know, after I said the sock, I don't know that a sock would be the best thing here, only because it's the similar shape to the J. But I would have the title just more interactive, and you know, I would have some small things falling, not just have two big things. I would have like a single sock down here.
Yeah.
You know,
and I do like the idea of what you were saying of having like even like some type of background, like another pile of clothes or something like that to give it some
dimension,
some depth. Yeah.
I mean, I was just thinking you could also, if you had like in the background, if you had like a closet door that was slightly open and back here, and there was like, you know, PJs hanging over the top of it, you know, something like that. You could add something like that without, you know, you don't want to get too
like,
busy. I know, Kitty, right? You don't want to get too busy, but you know, just giving a little context and I think and maybe removing a little bit of the symmetry would help with that. I probably would also do pajamas in all caps, and as you saw me drawing, maybe an exclamation mark at the end, so it just adds a little bit of energy to it. And so Allie loves, and then just pajamas, you know.
Yeah.
And,
what was that, Clay?
Really just bring some fun to that. Pajamas!
Okay, that's great.
You can quote me on that. That's
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? No. Let's see. I don't know. Do you see any more questions, Clay?
I have not, so I think we hit most of it, but this has been a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for joining us.
We could do before and afters, in which I'm glad to put that together. I know you've got to run. Do you want to send me where you were at with the nacho one and the
yeah.
And I'll put that together, a post real quick, and tag you in it. And obviously, I'm the I think we can all agree that I win. No, or maybe Clay.
Fine.
Just kidding.
Hey, you're the one who dragged me into this anyway. It was all Katie's idea. Hey, should we do a showdown? Sure, fine.
No. I said let's do a cover design thing, and you were like,
Showdown.
Showdown. Yeah, you brought the fight to it.
I thought the showdown was between the covers, not the artists.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
I think
but if
the
the
covers
covers
totally
win,
won. Yes.
all right, right.
Yes.
This was recorded, so we will post this later.
after I cut out the
Christine
beginning
and Brett.
where I was yelling at my children, I have to figure out how to do that.
Okay, you can do that. Actually, I don't think it started recording until halfway through your. I think it didn't catch any of that, but when you hit record halfway.
I had it start recording automatically, and then.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
Then, anyway,
stopped it, and then.
There was 8 kids here until 10 minutes before we started. So I was like, and I have to cut that out because I paused it right after that, and then it reminded me to start it again. So I will post this as well as the before and after. But thanks everybody for spending the night with us.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I was just thinking about the Thanksgiving cover. Looks so awesome as compared to where you started from. If you come in with a cover like that, and the interior illustrations need then a little bit of help to match up to the cover, no?
Yeah, with the author's permission, I do add that. If I'm adding something to the cover like that, I do touch up here and there with the interior. I will tell you that I get myself in trouble because I like to do that, but that's not really the scope of work.
You almost have to, like, I understand where you're coming from when you see something like that, because it is such a difference. And the other thought I had was, well, you should put some of those treatments on the interior.
I do. I
want people to know.
Clay,
they should think about that, right?
You have to go, Clay. Don't feel like you got to stay.
I probably jump off here, but.
Bye, Clay. Thank you so much.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get off in just a minute too.
Thank you.
Clay. I'll just show you really quickly.
You're welcome.
With Yana's book. Where is it? I've got things hidden everywhere. With this Christmas book. Why can't I read? Oh, these are the cover files. Sorry. Interior files. Okay. Oh, these are the. There we go. Okay. So with this one, for example, like I added a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I added all the snow and the sparkles. And this font right here is the font that I used on the cover. That was what I was saying before, where I bring it into the interior of the book. There's, I added the wind here.
There will be a disconnect if the cover is different from the interior.
I think that,
so I think it's important.
But I didn't want to. I feel like I needed to share that it's not the norm. That shouldn't be something that you would expect from a formatter, is what I'm trying to say, because it really is outside of that scope of work. So I just kind of have that. I have a digital tablet which allows me to create these things, but a lot of formatters don't have that. And so I didn't want to make it seem like this is normal, because it's totally not. But like for this particular thing, I found that it was much easier to read with something behind it like this. So that's why I added the wind in this situation. This color that Quinn is in is the same color it is throughout the book. So Quinn is this turquoise color, and then the Yeti is in green on every page. So I needed something to make that Quinn stand out on this particular page, which is why I added it. So yes, I do agree with you. I wouldn't add something on the cover if I wasn't prepared to do it for the whole book. But it just, anyway, I don't know how to say that without.
But the truth is, if it were my cover and you did that for my cover, I would say, here, this needs to be throughout the book. And it's nothing on you. It's just, it is what it is, because there would be such a disconnect between the cover and the interior then.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, but I don't think I'm adding so much that it would be that it wouldn't match. It's just more of like you want someone to feel inclined to open the book and turn the cover. And so for me, like adding some sort of movement, sort of like what Clay did with the Nacho font treatment or title treatment, is whatever you want to say, is he kind of created that wave effect that kind of gives you the motion that you subtly need or subconsciously need to want to grab that book and open it. And I think that with the turkey book, that's what was missing with it initially, is it was very static and very symmetrical, and there really wasn't any sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? It just needed a little sounds very intelligent, but you know what, I'm hoping you know what I mean, where it needed something extra. And I think that, you know, the wind going around the text and the turkey kind of helped with that. But I haven't seen any of her interior pages, so I don't know how different it would be, but I don't think that made I don't think it made it look so different that it didn't match it anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I know that I'm a picky person. For me personally,
Oh yeah, me too.
Every little thing.
Yeah, me too.
I just wanted to mention it in case anybody else.
I annoy myself often with being so picky, so I totally can relate. But yeah, if someone's prepared to do that to your cover, I would imagine that they'd be prepared to do that for your whole interior, because I find myself doing that even when no one asks me to do it. So.
Yeah, even the littlest thing can give you a different feel when you look at an illustration. I'm very visual.
Yeah, for sure.
No worries.
Did you have any other questions? I do need to go. I have a 4-year-old who's type 1 diabetic, and I've lost the data for him. So for some reason his sensor's not working. So I gotta go. And
Bye. Have a good night.
But if there's any other questions that I can answer quickly, I'm happy to do that. I just need to make sure he's okay. Anybody got anything? I think Clay's still hanging out. He can hear me. Thanks for your help, Clay, making me look good. Just kidding. All right, guys, have a good night. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Bye.